As they struggled to make progress through the knee-deep snow, Taliban and Al-Qaeda insurgents opened fire on them with rifles and machine guns. With most of the SEAL team already pinned down, Master Sergeant John A. Chapman takes the initiative, pushing forward up the slopes and drawing fire away from his comrades. Encountering an enemy bunker, he eliminates the occupants in a deadly close-quarters firefight. Even as the SEAL team leader pushes up the mountain to assist him, Chapman emerges from the bunker and engages the second enemy position, sustaining several direct hits in the process. Although he will succumb to his wounds before medical help can arrive, his heroic actions saves the lives of his squad mates, earning him a posthumous Medal of Honor. The sacrifice of John A. Chapman was just one more name added to the list of men who died in the pursuit of justice over September 11th, a date forever seared into the American consciousness. On that infamous day, 4 planes were seized by members of Al-Qaeda. While one was diverted from its target by the heroic efforts of its passengers, the other 3 would go on to strike the Pentagon and the World Trade Center, inflicting nearly 3,000 casualties in the worst terror attack to ever occur on US soil. But even as rescue teams began picking through the rubble, a cry for vengeance went out, resounding across the wounded nation. No matter who was responsible, this attack would not go unanswered. From the start, US intelligence operatives had one chief suspect in mind: Osama bin Laden, head of Al-Qaeda and former member of one of the wealthiest families in Saudi Arabia. Bin Laden was already a suspect in the bombings of 2 US embassies in East Africa, and the Clinton administration had made several efforts to apprehend or assassinate him in 1998 and 1999. Unfortunately, bin Laden was a wily opponent, seemingly capable of escaping from any trap. But with the international spotlight now firmly on Al-Qaeda's activities after the 9/11 attacks, pressure began to mount on their primary supporters in the Middle East, the Taliban. While the US was still mourning its dead, President George W. Bush issued a stirring ultimatum to the Taliban, who were the de facto rulers of Afghanistan. His message was clear and succinct: expel Al-Qaeda and turn over bin Laden, or we will smash your illegal regime to pieces and dig him out of the rubble ourselves. The Taliban stubbornly refused, and so the stage was set for yet another bloody conflict in the Middle East. But before we discuss the 2001 invasion, let's take a few minutes to establish some context. Historically speaking, Afghanistan has been one of the most tumultuous and unstable regions on Earth. Isolated from its neighbors by the tall peaks of the Hindu Kush, it remained a land of nomadic cattle farmers and tribal fiefdoms well into the 20th century. Any real developments in modern infrastructure were rudely interrupted by the 1978 Communist Revolution, which led to a Soviet invasion 1 year later. As the new front line of the ongoing Cold War, Afghanistan received immediate attention from a plethora of state actors, including the United States, Saudi Arabia, and most importantly, Pakistan. Ever since it gained independence in 1947, Pakistan has had good reason to meddle in Afghanistan's affairs. Much as Germany in the 19th century devoted its diplomatic efforts to prevent an alliance between France and Russia, Pakistan has invested huge amounts of time and resources into preventing Afghanistan from establishing ties with India. Such a union would isolate Pakistan, leaving it vulnerable economically and militarily. During the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, the Pakistani Inter-Service Intelligence Agency, or ISI, anonymously funneled money and equipment from the CIA and Saudi Arabia to guerrilla forces in Afghanistan. The largest of these forces was the Mujahideen, a diverse group of tribal warlords and jihadists with little in common besides the shared goal of driving out their foreign occupiers. Using Afghanistan's mountainous terrain to their advantage, the Mujahideen waged a successful campaign of guerrilla warfare against the USSR. When the Soviet Union was forced to pull out of the country in 1989, It led to the total collapse of the not-so-democratic Republic of Afghanistan just 3 years later. It was during this period that the Taliban first came to prominence. Consisting of ethnic Pashtun students from traditional Islamic schools, the Taliban initially seemed a preferable alternative to the Mujahideen, who are now busy fighting amongst themselves. Taking advantage of this chaos, the Taliban stormed onto the international stage when they captured the capital of Afghanistan, Kabul, and set up the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. This oppressive, totalitarian government would be officially recognized only by Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and of course, Pakistan. Under the new regime, Afghanistan quickly became a safe haven for terrorists, drug traffickers, and slavery rings. By 1999, the country was exporting at least 4,000 tons of opium poppies, 75% of the world's supply. This was often the sole source of income for Afghan villages, ensuring that support for the Taliban would continue despite their brutal interpretation of Sharia law. This made the country a perfect hiding place for Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. Of course, by 2001, the United States was no stranger to combat operations in the Middle East. During the Gulf War, US forces had smashed Saddam Hussein's forces, despite the dictator possessing the fourth largest standing army in the world. Invading Afghanistan, however, presented challenges not seen since Vietnam. The US would face a decentralized guerrilla force, many of whom were veterans of the Soviet-Afghan War. While Saddam had arrogantly attempted to match the US gun for gun, the Taliban could simply retreat into their mountain strongholds and wait for the storm to pass. The key to a successful invasion was to cut off the Taliban from support in the Middle East. That meant dealing with Pakistan, whose inter-service intelligence agency had been a staunch ally of the Taliban since their inception. The US laid down a simple ultimatum. Pakistan was either against the Taliban or against America. When the leader of the ISI implored Deputy Secretary of State Richard Armitage to consider the complex history of the situation, Armitage simply replied, "No, the history begins today." Pakistan formally renounced its support for the Taliban on the 15th of September, just 4 days after 9/11. The next step was to establish contact with the sole opposition group to the Taliban left in Afghanistan, the Northern Alliance. Operating out of the remote Panjshir Valley, the Northern Alliance was chiefly composed of former Mujahideen who had agreed to set aside their differences and present a united front against their enemies. On September 26th, an 8-man team of CIA agents operating under the codename Jawbreaker arrived in the Panjshir Valley. Their purpose was to secure the cooperation of the Northern Alliance, a task made considerably easier by the $3 million in cash they had brought with them. Jawbreaker was then joined by Task Force Dagger, which began providing equipment and training to the Alliance militia. 10 days later, the US-led coalition of nations launched an aerial bombing campaign. Taliban fighters all across the country had their morning prayer routines rudely interrupted by thousands of pounds of US ordnance raining down on air bases and military infrastructure. Within 24 hours, the Taliban's air defense network was obliterated, and ground forces were cleared to move in. The coalition was made up of men from several nations, including the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. But at the start, only the US and the UK were directly involved. Additionally, Special Forces units from dozens of countries were involved in the invasion. The first Special Forces squads were inserted into the Panjshir Valley via the same route taken by the Jawbreaker team. There, they met with the overall commander of the Northern Alliance, Fahim Khan, and began a long and arduous trek through the mountains to the Taliban-controlled city of Mazar-e-Sharif. Simultaneously, members of the 75th Regiment of U.S. Army Rangers airdropped onto an airstrip southwest of Kandahar. Thanks to skirmishes with the Northern Alliance closer to the city, only a single unfortunate Taliban soldier had been left as guard. With that airstrip secured as a forward operating base for later operations, the assault on Mazar-e-Sharif began on the 9th of November. The Taliban had entrenched around the city, but their fortifications only prolonged the inevitable. After the US Air Force spent a few days bombarding the defenders, 2,000 Northern Alliance fighters, led by General Abdul Rashid Dostum, stormed the city to mop up any remaining resistance. After a battle that lasted only 90 minutes, 700 Taliban fighters had been killed or captured. The Northern Alliance suffered fewer than 50 casualties. The fall of Mazar-e-Sharif came as a major shock to both the Taliban and US Central Command. Both parties had assumed the city would resist for months and require a long period of brutal street fighting to liberate. But now, the road to Kabul lay wide open, and the Northern Alliance wasted no time advancing south towards the capital. To their astonishment, the Taliban offered no resistance, and Kabul fell only 3 days later. This pattern continued for several weeks. Conventional resistance was all but pointless. US air power was absolute, and moving in the open was a death sentence. The largest battle fought during this period was at the city of Kunduz, where 5,000 Taliban and Al-Qaeda soldiers were besieged by coalition forces for 12 days. During this time, the 75th Ranger Regiment conducted assaults on Taliban camps in the mountains around Kandahar. America was sending a
Man, you guys, Kabul seems to fall often. Seems like it fell when we took it from the Taliban in the first place. And it fell again to the Taliban when we left it immediately. Wonder what's going on with the Mujahideen. They were so useful when the Soviets were, in effect. Now that the Soviet Union has fallen, I guess it's all just fun and games. Or as these three like to call it, war crimes and torture. Say hello to Snoopy, Doopy, and Loopy. It's interesting, guys, the parallels. The ultimatums that we gave Saddam Hussein. The ultimatums about his sons. Meanwhile, the Saudis have immunity in our country. I guess Saddam wasn't polite enough. I guess he didn't eat with a salad fork. It's very interesting. Well, you know what I want? I want the Democrats and Republicans to surrender the power of we the people. Or we will smash your illegal regime to the ground and pick our birthright out through the ashes. That's what I have to say. Just reworded George Bush's speech there a little bit. But same thing. Hey guys, this is Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today?
Most of all, I want to thank you, the people of Georgia. We'll give you a microphone. Folks, Georgia was 100 days ago today when I was inaugurated on the steps of the United States Capitol to be your president. And I was looking forward to coming back and seeing these guys. I agree with you. I'm working on it, man. Give me another 5 days. Folks, y'all know what they're talking about. There should be no private prisons, period. None, period. That's what they're talking about. Private detention centers. They should not exist. And we are working to close all of them. So folks, look. Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right. Okay. Let him go. No. I promise you. The only thing that's going to keep me from doing that is you keep moving. I promise you. Thank you. Folks, look.
Suckers.
It's been 100 days.
Y'all be suckers.
Since I first sat at my desk in the Oval Office and went to work for you and the American people.
We voted for you, but nothing is fundamentally changing.
Hey guys,
Why is this happening to us? We're doing the same thing over and over again, thinking there's going to be a different result.
I want to thank you. I want to thank the American people because I think we've gotten a lot done. I promised, even before I was sworn in, that I would get, in my first 100 days, 100 million COVID vaccine shots in people's arms. We've lost over 550,000 Americans. Well, we delivered over 220 million COVID shots in the first 100 days. We vastly expanded access. We got 100 million doses of vaccine, enough for every single American.
Free thinking, innovative, totally open-minded. Domination politics. Getting the free thinking on, innovative shit on, open-minded shit on.
Secretary Clinton.
It's kind of one of those things the founding fathers wanted, you know? Out of many, good. Just whatever you do, guys, don't be an American idiot.
To take from Qatar forward to, for instance, into Dulles. So, you know, depends on how many folks we have. Is it a full flight of SIV? Is it other Afghans? Is it, you know, American? So that is just extremely dynamic. You know, Transcom and the commanders, as those manifests are done, they make those decisions, you know, on the spot.
Is the idea that only SIVs that have been fully processed are going to be coming into the U.S. for now, or will there be a situation where any of the Afghans that are evacuated will be brought onto bases and then work through the system once they're here?
So what's very important that we will continue to do is the full screening and vetting process that takes place from the beginning all the way to making a final decision of where somebody goes. I know we will continue that. And then going back to right now, the guidance is, and will continue, is to continue to increase our outflows to make that happen.
General?
Yes.
Is the American flag flying at the airport in Kabul right now?
Yes.
There's some talk from veterans, people who served in Afghanistan, that the U.S. Embassy, which cost over nearly $800 million to build, why was that closed and the flag taken to the airport? Shouldn't the flag come down last from an embassy when conducting an evacuation?
Hey, I can't speak for the decisions the embassy makes and what they've done. I know that embassy operations or consular operations continue on Kabul airport, and as you know, at the military headquarters,
get that, guys?
where U.S. personnel.
He lied, but there's men and women who served. They know
the mission,
what's going on.
The flag flies.
So
When evacuating a country,
they told you.
Doesn't the American flag
You were
come
caught
down from the embassy
by your
last?
own,
That's what a lot of veterans are saying.
your own troops. They know what's going on.
I would say, yeah.
They didn't mean to interrupt your life.
India is doing so well. India is being decimated right now. We did a great job on that. The ventilators, the equipment that we got, the cupboards were all bare, everything that we did. And then we developed a vaccine, 3 vaccines in 3 months, in 9 months. And actually, I'll tell you, it was 3 days less, 3 days less than 9 months. And it's great. And you know what? I believe totally in your freedoms. I do. You got to do what you have to do. But I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the.
You ready, kids? I can hear you. Oh, who lives on a swamp? bombs right under the sea. Who snatched your aunt's head and won't let her flee? Who touches your mom and gropes all the kids? Be sure not to tell your dad what I did. Horny, Biden, grab it, Biden, grab it, Biden, grab it, Biden, grab it.
With everybody, minds on the Afghanistan, Kabul situation, the inflation in our country, the income inequality, the life expectancy going down, and of course our healthcare system given to as a gift the health insurance lobbyists and bureaucrats from Silicon Valley, who also have taken our First Amendment rights. It's a good thing, guys, to be free-thinking, innovative, and independent, progressive media, because there's a whole lot of hands dealing blows to democracy, to liberty, and life, and yet seeing these things clearly, takes every single muster of constant vigilance, guys. Every single option. What I like to do, guys, to get focused, I like to go back to the past. The past, it shows us it's the blueprint of the future. So, without further ado of going back, guys, I just want to let y'all know that there's many players in this game. If we all stood up, because they're playing on our backs, guys. If we all stood up, the board game would be over, guys. But here's yet another player, and she is not one to be overlooked or underestimated. I never underestimated this female.
In a recent acclaimed book by Mark Landler as being in the Clinton War Cabinet, and we know that you've talked about this, you encouraged the president to intervene in Libya in 2011. Recently, President Obama said his one mistake in office was probably failing to plan for the day after what he thought was the right thing to do in intervening there. How do you see your responsibility in that?
Well, first of all, it's important to remember where we were and why the president made the decision he did, because this was a presidential decision. I've advised the president. Sometimes he follows my advice. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he uses a combination of what he hears from his advisors. We were a potential disaster as Gaddafi threatened to massacre large numbers of his population.
My job is to make judgments. My job is to make judgments no one else can or will make. I made them. I'm convinced I'm absolutely correct in not deciding to send more young women and men to war.
You go, Joe Biden.
For a war that in fact is no longer warranted.
Tell him, Joe. Tell him. Tell him the truth. First time in his life, bro.
I don't trust anybody, including you. I love you. But, there's not a lot of people I trust.
Well over 100,000 Afghans have also died in the war. This is a country that's been at war or in conflict for more than 40 years. And the United States spent all this money and spent more lives trying to fix it, but it really didn't accomplish a whole lot on that front.
The Washington Post. Democracy ties to darkness.
The Europeans, our Arab allies, were urging us to help them to try to prevent that. After due diligence, with a way of supporting their efforts that did not cost a single American life. And we saved a lot of Libyan lives. Now, could we have done more after the Gaddafi regime was ended? Well, that's always, second guessing, and I'm sure that there's more we could have done. Let's look at what we did do. We, along with the UN and others, helped to superintend 2 free and fair elections, something that is still quite an accomplishment by the Libyan people. They chose moderate leaders. Unfortunately, pre-existing rivalries.
Now, I literally have to stop the video right now because, she just makes me so angry, bro. So, let's look at what we did in Libya. Did Libya have slavery? Did Libya have an economy that was thriving? I mean, these politicians, man, they turn everything around to make it sound however they want it to sound. But this country doesn't need that. It doesn't need optimism, a false optimism. What it needs is to look at itself in the mirror and to take stock at it and to evaluate and then act accordingly. It doesn't need to look at the glass half full and talk about how, Gaddafi was a horrible leader. Why was he a horrible leader to Hillary? Well, Hillary doesn't like the Soviets. She doesn't like the Soviet Union. She doesn't like communism. Communists trade with communists. They don't trade with capitalists. They don't benefit our interests. Our interests is oil. Our interests is maintaining, the drug war. Who knows what our interests really are? Because we're pretty much locked in with the Democrats and Republicans. So they can spin things around and make our interests whatever they want them to be. But let me tell you what our interests are not. Our interests are not to go inside of a already founded sovereign nation, to depose their leaders and create a power vacuum, just like you did in Iraq, which made it, that made the ISIS caliphate. There was nobody there. The Mujahideen fought against themselves, guys. It's a really complicated history. It's like Last Man Standing or King of the Hill. But all we do really is we pick off the people that we hate. Then we go, oh, good job, well done. We're done. And then we go, la-da-da-da-da-da-da. We go out of there. And, oh my God, there's another thing. We forgot to take our weapons that we left behind. Now all of these fucking people that, So, it's the same old story. It's the same old thing that we keep doing. So, guys, we seem to have a pattern. So, I just want to, share that with you. Veronica says, yes, preach. I'm just saying, guys, we seem to have a pattern. There seems to be an ongoing pattern where we go take out the Russians, the Soviets, then we go back home, we rest a little bit, then we fucking try to execute Fidel Castro. We just want that's not, first of all, that's not nation building. That's not what nation building is. My conversation with KT yesterday, he said nation building was when you want to put teachers over there, when you want to change an entire generation to make the ideals and the principles and values differently. That's how you nation build. You don't nation build by drone striking weddings. You don't nation build by taking out the Soviets and then going home. That's not how you nation build, guys. I think that this is the thing with the Democrats and Republicans. Either you know that and you're lying, or you're dumb on purpose. And if you're dumb on purpose, that means you're lying, right? So is there another option? Because you guys went to Harvard. Y'all went to Yale. You're Rhodes Scholars. Rachel Maddow. She said that Trump could have a executive order. He has the power, but it could be illegal. When do you guys start to get stupid? I guess it's when it's politics. When politics is concerned, people just start to get stupid for no reason. I don't like it. I think we should not do that anymore. So on to Hillary.
This country has prevented the government from really being able to act on behalf of the nation. If there were more things to be done that we could have influenced, I think that's something we should be looking at and evaluating, because Libya is a country that is struggling to be successful.
The Taliban has to make a fundamental decision. Is the Taliban going to attempt to be able to unite and provide for the well-being of the people of Afghanistan, which no one group ever done since before dealing for hundreds of years. And if it does, it's going to need everything from additional help in terms of economic assistance, trade, and a whole range of things. The Taliban has said we'll see whether they mean it. They're seeking legitimacy. They're seeking legitimacy to determine whether or not they will be recognized by other countries. They have told other countries as well as us they don't want us to move our diplomatic presence. So all this is all just talk now. All just talk now. And so far, the Taliban has not taken action against U.S. forces. So far, they have, by and large, followed through on what they said in terms of allowing Americans to pass through and the like.
So, I mean, that is the land of unconfirmed videos. We came, we saw, he died. We came, we saw, he died. He captured or killed.
A Jewish state between Israel and the United States. The desert is blooming again.
That's pretty humorous, Dave.
They're taking the name of George Washington off schools. Can you believe it? We're not going to let this stuff go on. The hardest thing I had to do as president was signing letters to the families of soldiers who were killed in the Middle East. Often I called the parents. Often. Sometimes I went to Dover Air Force Base. That's where the bodies of the soldiers would come in, and I'd see them bringing a young man, young woman in a coffin.
Good partner with the president of Afghanistan, President
And they'd always tell stories about their child. So my son could throw a football so long. He was a quarterback in high school. He was a quarterback in college. So I think he could have been in the NFL.
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today?
Over the great, by the way, we have great generals. The ones you see on television are not the ones that are great. We have great generals. When you're hanging, clinging to a plane that's feet, and you eventually have to let go. How desperate is that? How sad and how desperate.
I'm going to have to push back on Trump.
After
We don't have
spending
great
much
generals.
of this day on Capitol
We should
Hill
have
answering
generals.
questions about the new
Let's just have something else.
strategy,
Let's have elected
Secretary of State
something.
Hillary Clinton
No more
shared
generals.
some questions for us. We began with an issue that, as you just heard, is troubling fans and members of Congress. Why start withdrawing U.S. troops just 18 months after the surge begins?
Well, I think there's been considerable misunderstanding about what the president said and what he meant. He said last night that our goal is to begin transferring responsibility for security and hopefully being able to bring some of our troops home starting in July 2011. But
July 2011, guys. We were going to bring some of our troops home. Do you know what happened? March in 2012, we had a surge in Afghanistan in which we placed even more troops in Afghanistan. Thousands more. Thousands and thousands, guys. These people are liars. Everything they say is the opposite. Sometimes I feel like, they're just bad people in the world. There are people that do want to do harm. It hasn't hit me. I mean, it doesn't really dawn upon me until I think about it really philosophically. That these people, some of these people actually feel like they're doing the work, good work. They're keeping people safe. That their principles and values are not nothing but arrogance and vanity. I know this because there are lots of different kinds of people, and there's lots of different kinds of people that experience different things. And back in the day, my parents, like you can talk all you want about talk shit about Muslims or something, right? Shit about Jews. That's the crossing the line, right? You can Jesus is real. Santa Claus is not real. We can bomb all the Viet Cong we want. We can torture them. Put napalm, Agent Orange on their asses. We can bomb Hiroshima. But if you put your elbows on the table, son. If you put your elbows on the table, that's crossing the line. Guys, that's what I'm talking about, the conventional wisdom and the social norms. None of it makes really any sense. Like if you put it quantifiably, if you try to measure it, contrast it, if you try to prioritize it, is a salad fork more important than human beings' lives? Well, the boomers thought so. They did. To this day, they really do. I mean, I try to get them to see that, but is that I'm disrespectful because I'm not the way they would want me to talk. Because as long as I talk in a way that I would like to talk, that's being disrespectful because I'm not eating with their salad fork. See, like, even when you try to explain this whole thing to boomers, they can't get it because you're not talking the way they want you to talk. You have to talk that way in order for them to understand you so that they can change their minds. And then it's like a whole, you're putting people in a box. I think the boomers were literally the best generation at putting people in boxes, bro. I think they did. And then they told people to get off their lawns and shit. So, I mean, what we're seeing now is the remnants, the consequences of boomer culture. And like I keep saying, guys, it's our time. It's our time to fucking represent. It's gonna get worse, guys. Because now, they've slipped into their 90s and 80s, guys. And they're getting sick. So if we keep letting them fucking run the shit, we're just gonna get more and more sick as a country. And they're not gonna let go. Because they've been gendered. And I'm a bartender, guys. And let me tell you. 60, 70-year-old men, boomers, they come up to me, ask me for a martini. Now, what is girly about a martini, guys? Nothing. Nothing's girly about a martini. In fact, James Bond drank martinis. He drank the Vespers. He drank gin, straight up with a lemon twist, as a vermouth, dry vermouth, just a little dry. Sometimes he liked it dirty. Most of the time, he liked the Vespers. So, be that as it may, James Bond is a manly man, right? Is anybody going to question James Bond's masculinity? No, but these 67-year-old guys come up to me. Can I get a martini? But can I get it in a rocks glass? I don't want it to look like a girly drink. So a glass has gender now. Now a glass just determines your masculinity. I mean, if not personify the whole entire boomer generation, I don't know what does. Every time I fucking get that, it's fucking surreal to me. Like, guys, I was born into a world, guys, where, and we all were. Israel was an emotion wrapped up in an idea simply by existing. The Jewish state, not the lobbyist groups, guys. The entire Israel. We support Israel. No matter who's in the government, no matter who's running the country, no matter who's paying them off, no matter who's buying our politicians, we support Israel. Guys, it's time to start getting more complex with our thinking. It's time to get enlightened and elevate the conversation. That's why we have Operation Glass Hammer, guys.
Yo, microphone check, make it a microphone check. Give it a microphone, I make it a microphone dead. Don't step to me, newbie, I could truly be moody. I could have played the fucking Grinch in the movies. I've been a part-time shadow cat, part-time. That is not a guy that I would ever want to try to battle rap. Snap, crackle, pop, mind fried to a crisp. Make an MC into a wide-eyed lunatic.
Good afternoon. I'd like to give you all an update on the situation in Afghanistan and our ongoing efforts there, particularly as they relate to U.S. citizens. And then I'm very happy to take your questions. Let me begin with my profound appreciation for our diplomats and service members who are working around the clock at the airport in Kabul and at a growing number of transit sites to facilitate the evacuation of Americans, their families, citizens of allied and partner nations, Afghans who have partnered with us over the last 20 years, and other Afghans at risk. They're undertaking this mission under extremely difficult circumstances, with incredible courage, skill, and humanity. Since August 14th, more than 82,300 people have been safely flown out of Kabul. In the 24-hour period from Tuesday to Wednesday, approximately 19,000 people were evacuated on 90 U.S. military and coalition flights. Only the United States could organize and execute a mission of this scale and this complexity. As the President's made clear, our first priority is the evacuation of American citizens. Since August 14th, we've evacuated at least 4,500 U.S. citizens, and likely more. More than 500 of those Americans were evacuated in just the last day alone. Now, many of you have asked how many U.S. citizens remain in Afghanistan who want to leave the country. Based on our analysis, starting on August 14, when our evacuation operations began, there was then a population of as many as 6,000 American citizens in Afghanistan who wanted to leave. Over the last 10 days, roughly 4,500 of these Americans have been safely evacuated, along with immediate family members. Over the past 24 hours, we've been in direct contact with approximately 500 additional Americans and provided specific instructions on how to get to the airport safely. We'll update you regularly on our progress in getting these 500 American citizens out of Afghanistan. For the remaining roughly 1,000 contacts that we had, who may be Americans seeking to leave Afghanistan, we're aggressively reaching out to them multiple times a day through multiple channels of communication, phone, email, text messaging, to determine whether they still want to leave and to get the most up-to-date information and instructions to them for how to do so.
An abject failure, my friends. An abject fucking failure. I mean, common sense dictates that we would get Americans out before we leave. So some people have posed different scenarios to me. Some people have said that maybe some Americans didn't take it seriously. Maybe they didn't think the capital was going to fall that fast. So they were biding their time and figuring out where they wanted to go. Because nobody really wants to come back here. We're the 1% own more wealth than the bottom 90% combined here. It's a really drab place. We don't even have healthcare. I think maybe they would probably want to go somewhere else, like the UK or, Australia. The Aussies are nice. New Zealand, there's no COVID there. So they were probably thinking about that, and then all of a sudden, bam, we're not even going to fight the Taliban. It's yours. Our army that we trained for 20 years, guys, 20 years. It's amazing. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of politics, guys. In many ways, politics is a theater for policy discussions told through varied layers of symbolism and stage management. Politicians signal meaning in the colors they choose, red and blue, the towns they visit, and the venues they appear in. On the outside, activists stage elaborate performances, like the one that Kamala performed today with the Hanoi graveyard ceremony. Oh, the vineyard, I'm sorry for the Hiroshima bomb. Oh yeah, vineyard. Yes. Oh, such theater. I really look, guys. As a theater person, I give all the political theater an F-. Just saying. Since 2001, the Defense Department, State Department, and the U.S. Agency for International Development have spent or appropriated between $934 billion and $978 billion, according to an inflation-adjusted estimate calculated by Netta Crawford, a political science professor and co-director of the Cost of War Project at Brown University. Those figures do not include money spent by other agencies, such as the CIA, the Department of Veterans Affairs, which is responsible for medical care, and responsible for the wounded veterans. Are they helping the veterans? Are the veterans getting their care? Ask the veterans. They know things. They do. They know a lot of things. That's why I ask them a lot of questions. I'm glad that they're, willing to tell me some stuff, because I really want to know. It drives me crazy. Oh, I don't think I could have made it in the Army though. Don't think I could have, bro. What did we get from this $1 trillion effort? Was it worth it? Was it worth $1 trillion, guys? Was it worth blood and treasure? Was it worth 3 different presidencies? Bush, was it Bush? Look at it, Obama, Trump. Yeah, those are the 3. Osama bin Laden, guys. He's laughing from his watery grave. If he's really thead. Considering how much we've spent on Afghanistan. It seems as though this politics, this theater, guys, this theater is meant to be a story, guys. This theater is meant to be a story. It's not meant to be, what shall we say? What's that sound? We'll give you a microphone. Play the record player at night. Okay. Got so many videos going on at the same time. I hate that shit. What was I trying to thought? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so theater is meant to be a story. Tell you a story. The moral of the story is, see, that's what theater's for. Theater is not to lie. It's kind of like, the Force, light and dark. The light side of the Force, we use theater to tell stories, to make lessons. That's what Jesus did. He did parables. Remember that? About there was a brother who went out of the field. His father said, go do something. He said, yes, and he didn't go do it. Then the second one said, no, I won't. But he did it anyway. Which father pleased his which brother pleased his father? It was the one who did it, because he got it done. That's how Jesus proved his story, proved his point. He told a story. That's theater. Theater is not lying to you, telling you that we have a mission when we have no clear objective. Theater is not telling you when you're elected by the people, which we the people establish justice and promote the general welfare. It's not to lie to us, to lie to our faces, and take our sons and daughters and sacrifice them for nothing. Or even worse, for Saudi whims. For the whims of the Saudi princes. It's actually outrageous. It's actually outrageous. And not to mention the vast amount of war crimes they've done in our name. The torture, the facilities of like Guantanamo Bay, that they knew That's what I'm saying, guys. They're not stupid people. They're not. They know exactly what they're doing. They're pretending to be stupid to you, but they knew exactly what they were doing. When they put Guantanamo Bay someplace away from America, because if they did torture in America, that is unconstitutional. They could have serious consequences with that, because there's still one document that they're deathly afraid of, that they want to get rid of, and they're trying to by all means necessary, and it's the Constitution. They don't want you to know that. They want you to think they're defending the Constitution. They always talk about the Constitution, don't they? No, they don't like it at all. Neither party does. Neither party does. Because in the Constitution, we have the power. They don't like it. You think Nancy Pelosi wants to fucking have that nightmare of a dream? Not when she's fundraising for the Democratic Party in the middle of the midterms? And she thinks it's all in the... And then she ponders, she looks at herself in the mirror, her $1,000 mirror in her mansion near Napa Valley. And then she says to herself, wait, I might not be in control of everything because I'm super wealthy and I'm a puppet of the rich. There might actually be consequences to my actions because the people have power in this country. Oh my God, it's probably the thing that keeps her awake at night. The thing that keeps them all awake at night, guys. Just so you know. They said we were constantly making progress. They said that we're going to win this. We're going to draw this war down. In 2012, Obama said he was going to draw the war down. He did a surge in Afghanistan. That guy, man, he disappointed me like a lot. The Washington Post, though, and this was before it was bought by Jefferson Bezos, got this really badass document called the Afghan Report. And it was a report basically that had like all of these interviews from generals and servicemen and presidents and secretaries and aides, and it was compiled, and they did a really good job, just pretty much just weeding out the lies and giving you the exact straight up truth. So I just want to show you a little bit of this documentary. It's from the Washington Post. Just keep in mind, it's before the Washington Post was owned by Jefferson Bezos. Just my little side note, but
Boeing 767 out of Nation stands with the good people of New York City.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes.
We've been at war for 18 years now. We're not winning, we're not losing. Presidents come and go, but nothing really seems to change.
Vital national interest to send an additional 30,000 U.S. troops to Afghanistan.
Our troops will fight to win. We will fight to win.
So how are we going to tell this story? And we thought through these documents, these first-hand interviews from people who were involved, and yet this material had been suppressed for so long, that this was an original way to tell the story of all the failures in Afghanistan.
We're basically fighting the wrong way.
We just let the Afghans rip us off because we didn't know how the story was going to end.
We are not really here to win.
In the fall of 2016, General Michael Flynn, who at that time was a retired U.S. general and intelligence director at the Pentagon, was working with Donald Trump on his campaign, and he was in the headlines quite a bit.
Love it. America first. America first.
And we'd heard there had been an interview done, a long interview done with Michael Flynn about the war in Afghanistan, and that this interview had been conducted by an obscure government agency called the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction. Since Flynn was in the news lot, we wanted to take a look at that interview, and so then we had to file a Freedom of Information Act request, and this dragged on for weeks, and Trump won the election, and Trump was president. Now Flynn was his national security advisor in the White House.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And ultimately, they denied us the interview. They said it wasn't a public record, so the Post had to file a lawsuit in federal court to obtain it.
Ambassadors, local, down at the local level, everybody did a great job. We're all doing a great job. Really? So if we're doing such a great job, why does it feel like we're losing?
Michael Flynn was just unsparing in his criticism of how the war was going. Then we found out that Flynn was only one of hundreds of people who had been interviewed by this Inspector General for Afghanistan over the previous few years. So we thought, well, we want to see what everybody else had to say about the war, all these insiders and generals and diplomats. And the agency hemmed and hawed, and we won the lawsuit with Flynn, so they couldn't really say no. And it led to what ultimately was 3 years of legal battles, and we had.
Do you hear this, guys? They do everything they can to keep the truth from you. Do you really think they'll tell you the truth? They'll never tell you the truth. Their job is to literally lie to you. That is their job.
Getting more of
That's what they think their job is
really
anyway.
Till 2018. There were hundreds of these. This is what we were told. Over 400 of these interviews, and the more we got, the more we realized that the patterns here of what all these people said really added up to a real indictment of how the war was fought and the policies behind it and how misguided they were. Separately, as a batch of documents, we managed to obtain hundreds of memos that Donald Rumsfeld wrote when he was the defense secretary in the Pentagon. It was the National Security Archive at George Washington University that originally obtained them. So the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, it's a mouthful. They go by the acronym SIGAR, S-I-G-A-R. They were created by Congress in 2008 to investigate fraud and abuse in the war zone. These documents that we obtained were really for a special side project that they called Lessons Learned, that they wanted to depart from their usual mission and they wanted to take a look at the policy failures behind the war. This started in 2014, they decided to do this, and the purpose at that point was they thought the war was winding down.
And by the end of next year, our war in Afghanistan will be over.
It's all ready for record.
University, and I had did a lot for years in Afghanistan, so I was quite well known.
If you're going to use a quote from me, could you run it by me?
But little did they know, the war was going to keep dragging on. In a way, these interviews are incredibly timely. There are people looking back at what went wrong, but they're still talking to the problems that exist now that still haven't been resolved and why the war is.
If you're going to quote me, could you just run it by me first? I need to make sure that my syntax is in order, and I haven't said anything of any kind of substance or truth to the American people. That way they can still be idiots and vote for us anyway, no matter what we do. So, yep, that's what they did. And throughout the 18-year campaign of rosy pronouncements, wonderful winding down State of the Unions, and hiding unmistakable evidence of the war and torture, hiding evidence that the war had become unwinnable because we had no clear objective, documents, well, the Afghan papers, these statements, guys, of truth. Like, see what happens, guys, in a world of truth and love and justice. I'm just saying. These Afghan papers are literally just a little sample of what we could all have if we just stopped our bandwagon mentality. You know, it generated an examination and a reflection of the conflict. And I'm pretty sure that this was the catalyst, guys, that made Joe Biden, that even changed Joe Biden's mind. Because, like, is a collection and group of, everybody had something to say, and none of it was good. See what happens when we tell the truth? Maybe solutions happen. So that's the lesson today. Will you be mine? Will you be mine? Will you be my neighbor? Also, guys, I don't really care that much, but the House passed the infrastructure bill. I don't know if y'all knew. The House has passed a lot of things. They passed the HEROES Act. Do y'all know where that is? So, for some reason, I do want to talk about this, though, like, briefly, just briefly, because, like, I'm exhausted. I just went through Afghanistan history. But for some reason, all the progressive YouTubers are, like, making this, they call this big reconciliation bill Bernie's bill. Do you guys realize what you're doing when you're doing that? You're labeling him and the bill. You're making them one, a symbiote. venom. So if like literally is Bernie's fate attached to this bill? I don't know if Bernie wants that shit. Especially I'm iffy because Nancy Pelosi really seems to like and enjoy this fucking reconciliation bill. She even said there ain't gonna be no bill on the bipartisan bill. She was like, there ain't gonna be no bipartisan bill without this reconciliation bill. Bernie, you get it, boo. Go Bernie. It's the first time I ever heard Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi say go Bernie before. Something's going on, guys. So before you fucking attach Bernie Sanders to this bill, we need to get some serious research into what exactly is going into this bill, guys. And how involved is Bernie Sanders in this bill? And what exactly is the definition of infrastructure? Because the Republicans seem to have a different definition of infrastructure in this bill than the Democrats do. So I'm still there because it's all very confusing, and those are literally the questions. But I know the mainstream media won't ask those questions. So will they ever get answered? No, they won't. And meanwhile, we're all going to toast to bipartisanship. Hey, chip, cheerio. And then we're going to find out months later what's in this bill. Oh, turns out he fines you for not having health care. Yeah, I know. I see exactly, guys, the drill. So before you label Bernie with this bill, Kyle Kalinske, and I don't know, he's mainly the one doing it. Why are you doing it, Kyle? You're so smart. Like, why are you tying a human being to a bill? Bills are flawed. That's not politically good. That's not politically smart either, guys. Let's be politically smart, at least for a bit. But that doesn't mean lie. It just means like evaluate your solutions and no more labels. That's just my thing. I want to put that in. And guys, if you order a martini, I just want to say, get a martini glass. Unless you're drunk and you want to dance in a club, then you get a rocks glass. But tell me that. And if you tell me that you want a rocks glass because it's a girly glass, I'm going to say you're not free thinking, innovative, and totally open-minded.